Hey everyone, it's Mike here from The Art of Guitar. Today I wanted to do this lesson to show you the basic chord shapes and how to alter them a little bit to get some more interesting things out of them. Sometimes the standard way to play a chord shape is the best way, but over the years I've watched some of my favorite guitar players do things a little bit differently, and I always thought it was interesting. So what I wanted to do was show you some of those alternative ways of playing these chord shapes, and then explaining what I think the advantages and maybe some of the disadvantages are to them. So today I'll be sticking to the 5 basic open chord shapes, the C, the A, the G, the E, and the D that spells caged. And if you ever wondered about the cage system, we teach that on the main website, so you can check it out there. It's a really interesting method, but you don't necessarily need to know that in order to follow along today. So let's start off with just the regular standard C chord shape. Now this universal way of playing the open C chord is great because it does lead to other chords that you're going to be playing a lot. For example, if you play C like this, you can easily just go right into G7 like that. You could also go into C7 just by adding your pinky. And you could do stuff like C sus or F major 7 that easily transitions. Now there is an alternate way to do this that I remember hearing when I heard the song Lola for the first time. I saw that it was played with a C chord, but it sounded much bigger. So what you do is you just move your ring finger over to the 6th string 3rd fret and put your pinky where your ring finger used to be. And now you have this lower, it's a 5th interval added to it. Sounds much bigger. There's the Lola effect. So if you ever want your C chords to sound more massive, go ahead and just add that lower note, the G note, to it, and you have it. Much thicker sounding. It also allows you to do the classic move underneath it, which is the root note to the 5th back and forth. It's sort of a country sound, but it's a really great way to accompany yourself if you're a solo guitar player. And real quick, another cool thing you can do with this is you can move your 3 fingers over, the top 3 fingers here over, and you have what I call the mid-size F chord. It's not quite the full bar chord. It's not as small as a tiny F major 7. It's kind of in the middle. I did a whole video on this. But that's really easy to get to from this enhanced C chord shape. Okay, the A chords are going to be pretty extensive because there are a lot of ways to play them. I like to do the middle finger, ring finger, pinky version. This is what I teach on most of my beginning lessons. I like it because you could easily go to A minor. Being a big Beatles fan, you do have to do that quite a bit. It also transitions into E minor pretty easily, and E major, and also C, because watch my middle finger, it stays there while I go to a C chord. So A major to C major. Sounds like Proud Mary, the CCR version. Now some people don't like how this feels because they don't like to use their pinky too much, so they'll switch to the index middle ring finger version. Some people don't like this though because it's kind of hard to fit those 3 bigger fingers into the fret and make it actually sound good. So that's why this one's a little more preferable for people who want to use their smaller fingers. But this one does feel very stable if you could fit them in correctly. It also allows you to do A sus pretty easy because your pinky's right there. It also goes into the D major chord really nice. So if you watch my index finger and middle finger, while my ring finger moves forward, these just go right behind it. So from this particular way to play the A major chord goes really well into the D major chord. And that's a very common move, A major to D major. Another chord this goes nicely into is F, because the middle finger stays there while the other ones just sort of go around it. So that's F major 7, so we have A major. Flip the fingers around, you have either F major 7, or if you bar across with your index finger, you have F. Just regular F major. Now this one's very interesting because it's the most flexible, but the least amount of people seem to use it, including myself. I don't use this one very much. But this would be middle finger, index finger, ring finger in that order. So you get this really interesting shape. This one goes really nicely into A major 7. E major is easy to go into from here. You just have to slide the index finger down and then move the 2 fingers over. So it's actually a pretty easy movement right there. Goes nicely into the D chord, because look at my ring finger. If I just move it forward and then bring my middle finger over, I have D major. So from here, it's just a real easy slide. Sounds like Give a Little Bit. Sorry, I've got all these songs in my head. And the last chord that I'll talk about that it goes into nicely is a C major chord. Watch how my middle finger stays where it is while my ring finger moves over and my index finger moves back. So because that middle finger acts as an anchor for the two chords, it's really easy to switch between them. Another benefit of this is if you have a lot of trouble fitting your fingers in a row like the other two shapes, this one's nice because they actually kind of stack on top of each other in an interesting way that takes up the least amount of space. So if you have really large fingers, this might be a really good option for you. I was watching one of my favorite guitar players play, and he just laid his index finger flat across to play A major all the time. There are a couple problems with it. If you're not great at barring, that could be hard. It's also hard to lift up and try not to hit the open E string, because when you do this shape, you have the open E string at the top. When you do this, you have to curve your finger in order to get that note. So I usually just omit that high E string when I do the bar version, but I still get all the notes because the E is hiding right here as well. The advantage to the index finger is that it feels like you're doing a power chord. So it's really easy to go to from, like, say, G. You could do A sus pretty easily. You could reach up and do higher notes on the frets. So for example, if you wanted to do the old Kiss trick or the Rolling Stones trick, that's easy to do if you're using the barred version. It's also pretty easy to go to the D chord because check it out. You're right here, you just have to move over and then bam, there's the D chord. So over the years, I've been using this a lot more often. Okay, we're into the G chord shape territory. So if you've learned guitar from the very beginning from method books, they'll teach you to do it this way. So that's just going to be middle finger, index finger, and ring finger. John Lennon likes to use his pinky on the high G like that. And that's great because then you could switch to other chords and leave that G down. We'll talk more about that later. But if you're just doing the very standard G like this, it's pretty good. I mean, if you move to other chords, it just takes one or two movements to do that. However, I think the best way to do this is what I call the modern G chord, even though it's not modern anymore, but it would be with the pinky and the ring finger here on the G and the D notes, and then add the middle and index fingers and you get this. This is great because if you want to move to other chords like C add 9, these two stay where they're at, and you could kind of get what I call the Wonderwall effect, where you're playing different chords but leaving these two fingers down the whole time as basically anchors. So it's E minor 7, C add 9 like we said, D sus, A sus, there's the Wonderwall effect. So a lot of guitar players who sing as well and don't want to focus too much on chord changes, they love this chord shape because it makes it easy to accompany yourself without having to move around too much. It also goes into normal D pretty easily because you leave your ring finger where it is and just lift up the pinky after you move your two fingers and bam, you've got the D chord. So G, modern G, to traditional D. And the last version of G I'll show you is the traditional G. So it looks like this. This I'll call the standard G, this I'll call the modern G, and this I'll call the traditional G. Try to keep all that straight. This is great if you play like folk music because you can easily go from G to G7 by just adding the index finger and lifting the pinky. And that goes nicely into C, which is a common chord after you do those two chords. You could also keep the pinky down and start to play C with a G at the top. Sounds like a Jayhawk song that I love. If you move these over, you have F add 9. And with this, if you go backwards, you get a little Paradise City Guns N' Roses. Without having to move too much. Okay, we made it all the way to the E shape now. So we have this. This is a great shape. It's very versatile already. You can add your pinky and have the E sus. Little Black Crows right there. She Talks to Angels. They actually play that in a different tuning, but that's how I play it with standard tuning. From here, you can go to the all-important B7. That's actually something that's really valuable. I teach this a lot in my courses. If you have E like this, going to B7 is just a matter of exchanging the ring finger and the index finger and adding the pinky. You could easily go to A minor, And you can easily go to D major. If you're from E here, you just have to slide the index finger forward and then the other fingers wrap around it. This seems like a heavily Beatles themed video, but I wanted to bring up 8 days a week. If you're playing D to E major, watch. Slide back and add these here. G, back to D. So with larger progressions, you could start to put all these ideas of linking together. The other way I see people play it, and this is actually really smart sometimes, is with your ring finger, pinky, and middle finger, like this. That looks a little strange, and it doesn't feel the best. It feels kind of like you're using the weaker fingers to play the chord. This feels much stronger. But when you go to this shape here, it allows you to go right to the bar chord shape from here. So if you know you have to go from E major to F major to G major really fast, you could actually just start like this. Slide it forward. Or the opposite, if you're playing bar chords and you're coming down, you know you're gonna have to hit E major really quick, just slide back and do that, and then go right back to your bar chord. All right, we're on to the last chord shape, the D form, the D shape. This is great because you could easily add your pinky for the D sus. You could let go of the middle finger for the D sus2, so you could do a lot of like Tom Petty sounding stuff. It goes nicely, like we talked about, into the G, modern G shape. So we have this, leave the ring finger, there you go. Now let's go to the shape that I accidentally did in the beginning when I started playing guitar. I barred across, so I was pretty ambitious, already doing barring, taking my middle finger and putting it on the D note here, 2nd string, 3rd fret. That one's okay. I don't like having to bar just to play a D chord, but it was nice to be able to reach my pinky up and hit the high A. So if you want to add some melody notes to it, it's a really nice way to have that pinky available. It's also really easy to go to the full bar chord shape from there. So you had this already, you just add these, and you have the first form D major bar chord shape. Which has its advantages as well. Okay, let's talk about the John Lennon D shape. And I actually had somebody email me about this particular shape today, and it reminded me that I wanted to make this video for a long time. And this is just a really great thing to add to it. So we have a D chord shape, standard D. Take your pinky and move it to the 4th string, 4th fret, which is an F sharp note. Now you're already playing F sharp here with your middle finger if you know your theory, so it's just adding a different bass note. It's an inversion. But if you watch John playing on the song She Loves You, it goes G, he does it with his pinky at the very top, E minor, B minor to D, and he goes this shape and he adds his pinky here. Gives it a different voicing, which I actually like a lot. Here's open D, here's the John Lennon D. Now, why is this kind of an interesting way of doing this? Because the F sharp leads your ear to want to go to G, which is the first chord in the progression that John's playing. So if you think of She Loves You, G, E minor, B minor, D with the F sharp at the bass note. It's a great way to lead people's ears into the next chord. Okay, hopefully that was a fun way to play alternate versions of these 5 basic chord shapes. And what I'll do is on the website, I'll actually put these into full progression so you guys can practice it in a real situation. I like to do that with what I call challenge solos and challenge songs. So not only will I go over all this stuff again on the website, we'll actually put some backing tracks up and you could practice to them. So that should be fun. All right, everyone, thanks for watching. We'll catch you at the next video. Bye-bye.